Ruza Zelic was begging the soldier not to kill them, but all three were shot. Findings in relation to the crimes charged. As to the crimes committed in Grabovica, the trial chamber has found that the fact that ABiH soldiers were billeted in Grabovica in preparation for combat operations in Herzegovina played a substantial part in the soldiers' ability to commit the crimes. As for the crimes in Uzdol, the trial chamber has found that crimes were committed during an attack on Uzdol, which was part of military combat operations. The trial chamber has therefore found that there was nexus between the crimes committed in Grabovica and Uzdol and the armed conflict in the area. With regards to the crime committed in Grabovica, the trial chamber has found that it has been established beyond a reasonable doubt that 13 inhabitants, taking no active part in hostilities, were murdered in Grabovica by members of the Mountain Brigade and identified members of the ABiH on the 8th or the 9th of September 1993. The trial chamber has found that the prosecution failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that 14 persons listed in the indictment were killed by members of the ABiH in Grabovica at the time relevant to indictment. The trial chamber notes that during the trial, 6 of the alleged victims listed in the indictment were withdrawn by the prosecution. With regards to the crime committed in Uzdol, the trial chamber has found that 25 inhabitants were killed by members of the units and the ABiH commander in Uzdol on the 14th of September 1993, and were persons taking no active part in hostilities. The trial chamber has found that the prosecution failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that 2 persons listed in the indictment were taking no active part in hostilities at the time of their deaths on the 14th of September 1993. Moreover, the trial chamber has found the prosecution failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that 2 other persons listed in the indictment were killed by members of the units and the ABiH command who attacked Uzdol on the 14th of September 1993. The trial chamber also notes that at the end of the trial, one of the alleged victims listed in the indictment was withdrawn. The defense has submitted that the cause of the death to the victims in Uzdol was either silenced by the HVO or that they were caught in the crossfire between ABiH and HVO during the ABiH attack on Uzdol on the 14th of September 1993. The trial chamber has found that HVO shelled hamlets comprising Uzdol intensively. However, autopsy report of the victims does not contain any evidence that the victims were killed or even injured by shrapnel from the falling shells. Therefore, the trial chamber has found that the evidence does not support the defense submission in this respect. In relation to the defense submission that the victims were caught in crossfire, the trial chamber knows that evidence shows that there was heavy fighting between the units and the ABiH command and the HVO in the Uzdol area during the attack. The evidence also shows that the inhabitants of the area tried to save themselves by leaving their homes and running for their lives. Contrary to the defense's submission, the trial chamber has found that victims were killed intentionally, and notes in particular that several victims were shot at close range. 2 victims were killed in their beds, one of whom was bedridden. That 1 victim had been mutilated prior being killed, and 1 victim was killed by being brutally beaten to death over the head after having been shot, first in the chest and leg. Another victim was killed by being beaten over the head with an implement with sharp and blunt edges. And finally, the trial chamber knows that even children were killed. Findings in relation to individual criminal responsibility of the accused. Having found that murders were committed both in Grabovica and Uzdol, trial chamber recalls that the purpose of a trial is not solely to determine whether serious violations of international humanitarian law were committed, but ultimately is to determine whether the accused bears individual criminal responsibility for those crimes. The trial chamber has assessed the individual criminal responsibility of Sefer Halilovic based on all the evidence presented to it during the trial. As a preliminary matter, the trial chamber knows that it is not convinced that the combat operation carried out in Herzegovina at the time relevant to indictment was called Operation Neretva. Except for a map, no other exhibit presented to the trial chamber refers to the combat operations as Operation Neretva. However, the trial chamber knows that several of the witnesses involved with ABiH at the time, including 2 corps commanders, did not hear the use of this name during the combat operations. However, for the purpose of this judgment, the trial chamber used the term Operation Neretva to refer to the combat operations which took place in Herzegovina at the time relevant to the indictment. The trial chamber has found that the participants of a meeting held in Zenica on the 21st and the 22nd August 1993 and chaired by the commander of the main staff, Rasim Delic, did not discuss Operation Neretva. It was a briefing by the corps commanders on their areas of responsibility at which they expressed their concerns on the directions the conflict had taken and the future direction of the conflict. The trial chamber has further found that neither Sefer Halilovic nor anyone else was appointed commander of Operation Neretva or any other operation at this meeting. Furthermore, the trial chamber has found that subsequent to Zenica meeting, Sefer Halilovic, among others, carried out tasks of reorganization and resubordination of units, and that was done pursuant to an order issued by Rasim Delic on the 1st September. The trial chamber has found that the prosecution failed to establish that Sefer Halilovic was appointed as commander of Operation Neretva by virtue of an order issued by Rasim Delic on the 30th August, as alleged in the indictment. Rather, by this order, Rasim Delic appointed Sefer Halilovic as team leader of an inspection team not entrusted with commander authority, but with coordinating and monitoring factions in the areas of the responsibility of the 4th and 6th Corps, which were the corps that carry out military operations in the area mentioned above, where Grabovica and Uzdol were situated. Furthermore, the trial chamber has found that the role of Sefer Halilovic in the implementation of orders issued by Rasim Delic concerning the reorganization and resubordination was consistent with his role as team leader of inspection team, charged with monitoring and coordinating functions. The trial chamber has found that the evidence presented by the prosecution is insufficient to support a finding that the location where the inspection team was accommodated in Jablanica was a IKM, from which an operation in Herzegovina was commanded, as alleged in the indictment. The trial chamber knows that the term IKM was used as a jargon to denote the location of senior officers. The trial chamber considers the evidence presented to it as to Sefer Halilovic's alleged position as commander of Operation Neretva to be inconsistent. The trial chamber notes in particular that some of the low-ranking soldiers who testified before the trial chamber considered Sefer Halilovic to be commander of Operation Neretva. However, the trial chamber has found that testimony of some low-ranking soldiers to that effect is only indicative of the respect which Sefer Halilovic enjoyed as a senior officer and one of the founders of the ABiH. The trial chamber cannot find this evidence per se is sufficient to support the prosecution's allegation that Sefer Halilovic was commander of Operation Neretva. The evidence provided by higher-ranking ABiH officer is more consistent in showing that Sefer Halilovic was not a commander of Operation Neretva, but rather was tasked with coordinating combat activities. The trial chamber also knows that at a meeting on the 4th of September in Dolnia Jablanica, Rasim Delic signed and approved the document for the operation. Rasim Delic's signature can be seen on the map entitled Operation Neretva. The prosecution alleges that the signatures on this map, Rasim Delic on the top left and Sefer Halilovic's on the bottom right, indicates that Halilovic was the commander responsible for the operation. The trial chamber has found, however, that contrary to the prosecution's allegation, the signatures on this map are inconclusive as to who was the commander of the operation. Having examined the evidence presented as to the role of Sefer Halilovic in the field in Herzegovina in September 1993, the trial chamber has found that Sefer Halilovic carried out tasks consistent with his role as team leader of an inspection team tasked with reviewing combat readiness and coordinating combat operations as set out in the order issued by Rasim Dalic on the 13th August 1993. The trial chamber notes that the authority of Sefer Halilovic to issue orders was limited in two ways by the 30th August order. First, in that for any drastic proposals, Sefer Halilovic had to consult with Rasim Dalic, and secondly, by this order, Sefer Halilovic only had the power to issue orders in keeping with his authority. The trial chamber notes in this regard that the position of Sefer Halilovic within the structure of the main staff was circumscribed as a result of the order of the 8th June and 18th July issued by Alia Izabegovic. The trial chamber also notes that evidence does not contain a prior order from Sefer Halilovic ordering the start of combat operation on the axis of attack. Moreover, analysis of the evidence concerning orders issued by Sefer Halilovic and the information sent to him from the field indicates that orders issued by Sefer Halilovic were issued under the overall authority of Rasim Dalic as commander of the ABiH, and the orders by Sefer Halilovic were in general implementing the instructions of Rasim Dalic. The trial chamber knows that evidence only contains one order concerning combat operations issued by Sefer Halilovic after the establishment of the inspection team, namely that of 15th of September 1993. The trial chamber has found this evidence is in itself insufficient to support a finding that Sefer Halilovic was in command of combat operation in Herzegovina. Moreover, the trial chamber is of the opinion that this order can be seen as part of the inspection team's coordination function. In conclusion, the trial chamber has found that the prosecution failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Sefer Halilovic was either de jure or de facto commander of the alleged operation called Operation Neretva. Moreover, the trial chamber has found the following. Concerning Grabovica, the trial chamber knows that order of the start of the combat operation in the axis in that area was issued by Zulfikar Ališpago as commander of that axis. The trial chamber knows in particular that the unit of the 9th Brigade was under the commander of Zulfikar Ališpago at the time the crime was committed. The trial chamber has found that the evidence presented is insufficient to establish that Zulfikar Ališpago was subordinated to Sefer Halilovic. The trial chamber has further found Sefer Halilovic knew of the crimes committed in Grabovica in the evening of the 9th of September. The trial chamber notes in relation to the investigation of the crimes in Grabovica, Sefer Halilovic in the evening of the 9th of September instructed Namik Zankovic, a member of the inspection team and of the ABiH main staff security service, to work together with the MUP, as well as with other members of the HVB, in order to investigate the crimes and to keep Sarajevo, rather than himself, informed. The evidence shows that at this point in time, investigations were already underway. The evidence does not show that Sefer Halilovic initiated the investigations, or that the investigations were in any way carried forward through his action. The evidence also shows that the 6th Corps Security Service, the Military Police Battalion of the 6th Corps, and the Military Police of the 44th Brigade, which were located in Jablanica, were involved in the investigations into the events in Grabovica. The Chief Security of the ABiH main staff, Yasef Yasarovich, was informed of the results of their investigations. The trial chamber has found, based on the evidence, it cannot be concluded that Sefer Halilovic had the material ability to punish the perpetrators of the crimes committed in Grabovica. Having examined all the evidence presented to it, and in light of its factual findings, the trial chamber has found that the prosecution did not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Sefer Halilovic had effective control over the troops in Grabovica on the 8th and 9th of September 1993, who the trial chamber has found committed the crimes. Concerning Uzdol, the trial chamber has found the crimes was committed by members of the units and the ABiH command taking part in the attack on HVO positions in and around Uzdol. The trial chamber has found these units were the Prozor Independent Battalion and the members of the civilian police forces of the MUP, both under the commander of the Prozor Independent Battalion commander, Enver Buza. The trial chamber has found that the evidence presented is insufficient to establish that Enver Buza was subordinated to Sefer Halilovic. Furthermore, the trial chamber considered the evidence presented to it did not show that Sefer Halilovic had any role in the investigation concerning the crimes committed in Uzdol. These investigations were conducted by the security services of the 6th Corps and the Prozor Independent Battalion. Once again, the chief of the security of the main staff, Yasef Yasarovich, was informed of the results of the investigation. The trial chamber has found, based on the evidence presented, it cannot be concluded that Sefer Halilovic had the material ability to punish the perpetrators of the crimes committed in Uzdol. Having examined all the evidence presented to it, and in light of its factual findings, the trial chamber has found that the prosecution has not proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Sefer Halilovic had effective control over the units and the ABiH command, which the trial chamber has found committed crime in Uzdol. Finally, the trial chamber has found Sefer Halilovic possessed a degree of influence as a high-ranking member of the ABiH and as one of its founders. However, the trial chamber considers that Sefer Halilovic's influence falls short of the standard required to establish effective control. It is a principle of international criminal law that a commander cannot be held responsible for the crimes of the persons who were not under his command at the time the crime was committed. The trial chamber has found that the prosecution failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Sefer Halilovic was either de jure or de facto commander of an operation called Operation Neretva, which the prosecution alleges was carried out in Herzegovina. The trial chamber has also found that prosecution has failed to establish that Sefer Halilovic had effective control over the troops which committed crimes in the area of Grabovica and Uzdol at the time the crime was committed. Trial chamber has further found that the prosecution failed to establish that Sefer Halilovic was responsible under Article 7.3 of the statute of the murder committed in Grabovica and Uzdol. Now we come to the last part of this position. Mr. Halilovic, would you please stand up? For the foregoing reasons, the trial chamber has decided that the accused, Sefer Halilovic, is found not guilty and therefore acquitted of murder or violation of the law or customs of war as charged in the indictment. Pursuant to Rule 99 of the rules, the trial chamber ordered that Sefer Halilovic be released immediately from the United Nations detention unit after the necessary practical arrangements are made. You may sit down, Mr. Halilovic. Well, that's all for this summary of the judgment. The hearing of this case is adjourned.
All right, we will